Hello everyone, I'm Cindy Blackstock. I'm joining you from unceded Algonquin territory here at Beechwood Cemetery, Canada's National Cemetery, to talk about our Reconciling History project, where we mark the burial places of persons who are involved in residential schools. Here is the graveside of Duncan Campbell Scott. Duncan Campbell Scott was often remembered in Canadian history as a Confederate poet, as a contributor to Ottawa's art and music community. And all of those things are true. He was also remembered as a loving father to one daughter, and she is buried here as well, Elizabeth Scott. But poetry always has a context. And the context for Duncan Campbell Scott was that he was the chief bureaucrat on the residential school file. He is the man who oversaw the residential schools, and he is also the man that said no to Dr. Bryce's life-saving reforms under the Laurier leadership portfolio. So when we think about people's legacies, we can't say that his poetic legacy is in any way the same weight as what he started in terms of residential schools. His legacy of residential schools is still being lived out in the lives of multi-generational survivors of residential school and their descendants. I do want to point out a couple of important points about his grave marker here. Dr. Bryce's original report, Raising the Alarm, came out in 1907. And you'll see at that same time, his daughter, then 12 years old, dies in June of that very year. And yet, the profound grief that Duncan Campbell Scott must have experienced did not enable him to make a connection to the opportunity to save the lives of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children who are dying in residential schools when Dr. Bryce's report came out that same year. Another thing you'll notice is that there's no burial or death date for Duncan Campbell Scott on his stone here. It's almost as if he will live on forever. I look at people like him as a teacher. He was well regarded by the federal public service for his, quote, loyalty to the system. He was often revered and indeed is on Parks Canada's list of the most important Canadians still today. But that moral cowardice led to a profound negative impacts for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples and for the country. What we really need to see are public servants who put the public first. And that's what Duncan Campbell Scott can teach all of us.